Welcome in Tough Fantasy Baseball today on Monday, September 16th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, we had a bunch of shortstop injuries this weekend, so you probably need some replacements. Jacob deGrom is back. We've got some waiver moves, start or sit decisions, and much more. Apologies if I sound kind of nasally. I got destroyed by allergies this weekend. But anywho, let's jump in.
I don't believe it!
Can you believe that Gerrit Cole got owned by the Red Sox again? Scott, that is where we will start.
Yeah, so he did. It was a bad outing for Gerrit Cole on Saturday. Let me give you the numbers here. He gave up 7 earned runs in 4 1/3 innings. He had been pitching great before then. We've talked about him a lot since coming back from that elbow injury. Has mostly pitched well, even though he hasn't had his slider. It hasn't really looked right for him. But in 7 starts leading up to this Red Sox start, Gerrit Cole had a 1.58 ERA, a 1.05 whip, 10.6 K per 9. Clearly was somebody you could trust using. But now, following this start against the Red Sox, his ERA for his career, 19 starts against them, is 5.23. Now, I'm generally not somebody who puts a lot of stock into team splits like that because the sample is generally small, and to a degree a sample exists. It was accumulated over a number of years so that the team hardly looks the same anymore that he's facing. But like, it's so much worse than every team with one exception. With one exception, Gerrit Cole has a 6.99 ERA against the Mets.
I was going to say, I know he stinks against the Mets too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only one that's worse. And if you look at his game log this year, his only 4 bad starts, there were 2 against the Mets and 2 against the Red Sox. So I haven't had a chance to, but I'm going to calculate Gerrit Cole's numbers against every team but the Red Sox and the Mets. And it's just, obviously it's a bigger sample against the Red Sox than most teams, 19 starts now, as I said. So I wonder if there's some kind of like subtle pitch tipping thing that only they've picked up on, and that's why it could span from year to year, even as personnel changes. I know Gerrit Cole has an especially bad track record against Rafael Devers.
Yeah, the Rafael Devers. I want to highlight that because
okay, go ahead. I'll have more to say, but go ahead.
Here's Rafael Devers against the 4 pitchers that he has faced the most in his career. Number 4 is Ryan Yarbrough. He has a 673 OPS against him. Number 3 is Charlie Morton. He has a 572 OPS against him. Number 2 is Jose Barrios. He has a 681 OPS against him. He has 46 plate appearances against Gerrit Cole. He has a 1410 OPS against Gerrit Cole.
Unreal.
It's wild.
So, in fact, Devers is in his head at this point because
100%.
The trouble started for Cole in this start because he intentionally walked Devers with nobody on in the 4th inning, I believe it was, after he cruised through 3. Intentionally walked Devers with nobody on, and he made this decision unilaterally. The catcher didn't know he was going to do it. The manager didn't know he was going to do it. He just decided, I'm going to walk Devers intentionally, and that started all the trouble for Gerrit Cole in the 4th. So all of this is to say, bad track record against the Red Sox, Rafael Devers in his head. Otherwise, there wasn't a lot that looked different for Gerrit Cole in this start, and I don't think you should abandon ship here on him as bad as this start was at a critical time. Presuming he didn't eliminate you with this start, his next start is against the Athletics. I would absolutely start him for that. His following start is against the Orioles. I would probably start him against that unless things go terribly against the Athletics. So, there's not this time of year, on this podcast, we're usually talking in terms of rest of season value. Like we take a medium-term look at players for the most part, but the medium term is shot now. It's just, are you starting him?
Yeah.
Or what is next year's value? You're starting Gerrit Cole. That's what I was building up to, basically.
And Chris, I know you sent over a video clip before we started.
I think this we overcomplicated it. Just play the clip. I think this explains it perfectly.
Just tip my hat and call the
Red Sox.
Is my daddy's.
What happened there?
That's the famous Pedro Martinez quote where he says the Yankees are his daddies, except it's, yeah.
I want to play this again. Hold on, I want to hear
Just
it.
tip my hat and call the
Red Sox
is my daddy's.
I think that I think that's all. This is really just. I think it's a psychological issue at this point, and
Yeah.
it's not great that the psychological issue happens to be against your team's greatest rival. And if I were a professional baseball player, I think I would rather retire than walk the best hitter on my greatest rival's lineup with the bases empty and no outs.
Yeah, I mean,
but
it is a coward's move for sure.
I genuinely think they might just need to not have him face the Red Sox next year. It's wild.
It's crazy.
As far as Gerrit Cole's 2025 value, I don't really know where to rank him. I don't know about you guys, but I'm probably just going to default to top 12, but
I was going to say top 15.
I need to see this. It would be nice to see the slider
Mm-hmm.
before I do that, because like you said, he's mostly managed to be effective this season. It just hasn't looked like what it looked like, and there's been more of these types of starts.
I've had him just outside of my top 15 in rest of season value for a couple turns now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'll be able to get him in there easily for next year. I will probably have Spencer Strider ranked ahead of him. But I can say top 15 for Cole, unless, obviously if there are bad reports about his elbow over the offseason, that changes things.
Yeah, Gerrit Cole, bit of a tough one entering next year. He just turned 34 years old last week, and he's got nearly 2,000 innings worth innings on his arm throughout his career. So, and obviously the underlying elbow concerns that he dealt with earlier in the season. So, yeah, I do think he's going to make for a pretty polarizing player in 2025. Chris, speaking of polarizing players, you have one here as your player of the weekend.
Yeah, Julio Rodriguez, who I was kind of always planning on just not saying that this season didn't count, but not overreacting to it, and probably ranking close to the first round, especially in roto leagues. And hey, this big weekend makes me feel a little bit better about that, because I'm trying to find, he had 2 3-hit games among the 3 games this weekend. 2 2-hit games. He hit homers on Friday and Saturday. He's hitting .333 with 5 homers, 17 runs, 4 steals over his past 17 games. And, I had kind of, when he had that hamstring injury and then came back from it very quickly, or ankle injury, came back from it very quickly, was pretty mediocre in August. I had kind of just written off Julio Rodriguez, in terms of his ability to be the guy we once thought he was. I just thought he was playing hurt. He came back super cold. This has been a nice reminder of what Julio Rodriguez is capable of when he's right. And, early on in the season, especially, the quality of contact metrics were mostly not that different than what they'd been the previous couple of years. His ex-WOBA now is 342. It was 337 and 345 the previous 2 seasons, first 2 seasons of his career. He wasn't pulling the ball in the air, but that's an issue that he has started to fix in the second half. And I mostly think Julio Rodriguez should just be drafted as a top 15, maybe top 12. Him versus Corbin Carroll, I think, is a really interesting one for 2025. I would probably take Carroll, given how good his second half has been, but I think both are probably playing their way back into at least the top 20 in roto leagues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very polarizing player again with Julio Rodriguez, who's turned it up lately. He's obviously been much better. I have last 17 games here, 333 batting average, 5 homers, 4 steals, and an OPS over 1,000 for Julio Rodriguez. Scott, what do you think about, if we're looking forward, Carroll versus Julio for next year?
I tend to play things extra cautiously with early round picks, so I don't think either will be in my first round. I guess Julio Rodriguez would probably rank higher. I could see him being in the second round. Carroll might slide to the third. But I'm just going off the cuff with this, and I may surprise myself. I'm actually going to do this tomorrow. I'm actually going to put together my ideal first 2 rounds for next year, so I'll be able to say with more conviction then.
All right. Player of the weekend for me is going to be Michael Busch, who, if we're being honest, just had a huge week in general. He did cap that off with a double dong here on Sunday. Obviously, we had the revenge games against the Dodgers earlier in the week and then a weekend series in Coors Field. So obviously a great setup here for Michael Busch, who throughout the week had 11 hits, 4 homers, and 11 RBI. And now overall in the season, 257 batting average, 340 on base, 20 homers, 794 OPS. Doesn't blow you away, but I mean, that is a quintessential corner infielder. If you play in a roto league and you can just pencil in like a 260 batting average, 20 homers, and okay counting stats, it doesn't really help you. It doesn't hurt you. It's just you need to lock in these stats. And that's what Michael Busch has done here in his first real opportunity.
I would think like 253, probably 75 homer or 75 runs, 65-ish RBI, 20-something homers. That's probably like the exact replacement level of a middle infielder in a 12-team roto league, I would guess.
Corner infielder.
Or corner infield, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the thing we got to remember about Busch too, he's 26 years old, but he's a rookie. So this was his first long-term exposure to the majors. And the thing I've been down on with him pretty much all season is the strikeout rate. It's been a lot better in the second half. It's been 25% in the second half. It was like 30% in the first half, 25% in the second half, and his average exit velocity has improved in the second half. So making more contact and making harder contact. What's strange about that is the numbers are worse, like the forward-facing numbers, and I don't really see any reason why. I was looking at fly ball rate, pull rate, all that stuff. It seems fine. So I'm going to choose to be encouraged by it, especially since he's finishing September here strong. And I'm going to be fairly optimistic about Busch going into next year, I think. Not that he'll be a top 15 first baseman for me, but I think there's a good chance he will, if he is just a late round pick, I think I'll like him to exceed that value.
And if we're just looking forward to this upcoming week, Michael Busch, 66% roster. The Cubs have the 5th best hitter matchups, according to Scott White's hitter rankings. And so if you do need a first baseman or third baseman, I think he's totally fine.
Well, there are 4 lefties on the schedule.
Ooh.
Yeah, so he's actually performed pretty well against lefties.
Yeah, he's been fine, yeah. 766 OPS.
Yeah, certainly better than you'd expect from a rookie left-handed hitter, but he just doesn't get to play much against them.
Gotcha. All right, so does that kind of dumb down the excitement for this upcoming week?
Yeah, I would say so. It would have to be a larger roto league, I think, to use Busch.
Okay. Fair enough. Want to give an, oh my goodness gracious, shout out to Brandon Pfaadt. Hope he did not end your fantasy season on Saturday because he was at the Brewers where he allowed 8 earned runs. He only recorded 5 outs in that game, 7 hits, 3 walks. Honestly, he was having a strong season up until just recently, but man, it has taken a tailspin.
But
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say last 6 starts for Brandon Pfaadt. It's a 9 ERA on the nose, a 2 whip. BABIP is near 500. His left on base percentage has been terrible. Based on the FIP and the XFIP during that span, it seems like he's been pretty unlucky, but that doesn't change the fact that he has a 9 ERA over his last 6 starts.
Yeah, and this is, I think we had a couple of examples, but this one in particular, I think stands out. Him and Andrew Abbott, I would say, would be the 2 examples of guys who were having good seasons, but we're doing it mostly by sustaining really good quality of contact metrics, which was surprising, especially for Pfaadt, because that was such a problem for him last year. He just got crushed when he allowed contact, and this year had totally flipped. He was putting up really good quality of contact numbers, and this is why one thing I always talk about when we talk about that is you need a really large sample size to know when you can predict pitchers being able to suppress quality of contact. And generally speaking, if a pitcher's not getting a lot of strikeouts, not really doing a great job of limiting walks, and is just getting by on weak contact, in the long run, you should probably expect that to not work out, because most pitchers who are outliers in that regard will regress to the mean. And that's,
Here's what's strange about that, though, with Brandon Pfaadt. So Andrew Abbott was overperforming his ERA estimators all year.
Mhm.
All three of them, FIP, XFIP. Well, there's more than three, I guess. But the main three I look at, FIP, XFIP, and xERA. Andrew Abbott was overperforming them. Seemed like an obvious regression candidate. Pfaadt, for the most part, has been underperforming them, all three of them. They look rather solid for him. The worst is xERA, because there are some quality of contact issues. It's 382, but that's still a full run better than his ERA at this point. His FIP is 367. His xFIP is 374. That's decent for a pitcher who throws a lot of innings. I'm not saying you need to stick with Pfaadt. Clearly not. He's been unusable for several weeks now, but it does make me a little more hopeful for him than Andrew Abbott without relying on any kind of skill change.
I would just say the one thing is we're now significant chunks of 2 seasons in where he's just been a lot worse than his ERA estimators. That's not to say that's definitely the case moving forward, but I tend to think it probably, like, there's probably something there where he's one of those guys that just, when he gets hit hard, he gets hit so hard that it kind of overwhelms anything good that he does.
Again, that is Brandon Pfaadt. Before we hit our first break, reminder to sign up for the FBT newsletter if you haven't already. We've been telling you all season. Chris, I did want to ask, what is the plan for the FBT newsletter during the off season? Just so people who are subscribed have an idea there.
I'm probably gonna sleep normal hours for a little while at least, but no, I am planning on continuing it throughout the off season, probably once a week, at least at first, but we'll see. I'm having an off season for I've covered multiple sports my entire 13 years at CBS, so this is my first off season ever. So I don't know. I might go stir crazy and start writing a newsletter every day.
Again, if you haven't already, it's cbssports.com/newsletters where you can find the FBT one, and you can sign up for free, and you can continue to, indulge in some fantasy baseball content throughout the offseason. Let's take our first break, and when we return, we will get into those shortstop injuries and replacements here on Fantasy Baseball Today. Welcome back in. Some big injuries this weekend. Francisco Lindor left Friday's game with back soreness and was out of the lineup on Saturday. He actually returned to the lineup on Sunday and then left early with renewed back discomfort. He will undergo imaging on Monday. The Mets actually called up one of their top prospects, Luis Angel Acuna, who is the younger brother of Ronald Acuna, was not having a very good season in the minors, though he does have a lot of speed. He had 40 steals, but not really much outside of that. Scott, would you plan on not having Lindor this week? And is there any interest in deeper leagues in Luis Angel Acuna?
It would probably have to be NL only for this particular Acuna, who has more value than the other right now, I guess. But that won't be a long-term situation. As for Lindor, so he came out with the same injury that he sat out Saturday, right? I haven't seen an update on that, but it doesn't sound promising.
It all sounds back related. Yeah. So I assume it's related. So
yeah, it stinks. I think I have him in one league where it's between me and one other guy for first place in a roto league. And as of right now, I think I'm going to have to sit Lindor. Can't afford to take a big fat zero.
Some other injuries from the weekend. CJ Abrams missed all 3 games due to left shoulder soreness. Tyler Fitzgerald missed all 3 games due to lower back tightness. And lastly, I do know that O'Neal Cruz plays outfield now. He's gained that eligibility. I think some people still might be using him at shortstop, but he left Sunday's game due to a left ankle injury. So again, we've lost some big names, some possible replacements this week. In the sleeper hitters column, Tommy Edman, 69% rostered. He had a huge week, 5 homers, 1 steal, and just overall been very good with the Dodgers. He's batting .300. He's got an .855 OPS, and he does have shortstop eligibility. A couple names further down the list. Geraldo Perdomo, 31% rostered. The D-backs, have 3 games in Coors Field. So obviously that helps for Perdomo's value. And Trevor Story is doing some things since he returned. He hit a home run on Friday, 3 for 4 with a steal on Saturday. Chris, who do you like more for this upcoming week, Geraldo Perdomo or Trevor Story?
Story and Roto, Perdomo, and points is probably the answer. Story is an especially bad points player, but since getting to the Red Sox, he's played like 140 games, I think, and it's like 20 homers, 25 steals, like 80 RBI, 80 runs, 90 RBI, something like that. It's a bad batting average, a lot of strikeouts. There are clear limitations to his game, but I think he's actually a decent middle infield option in Roto when healthy. Perdomo, I think it's just batting average and maybe the occasional steal, but in a points league, his plate discipline and the matchups at Coors could work.
Tommy Edman over both of them, I would say.
Yes,
is my number
sure.
2 sleeper hitter for this week.
Scott, I said that. I don't know if you heard me say it or not.
You said exactly that he's my number 2 sleeper hitter for this week?
I said of your sleeper hitters, there was only one shortstop eligible player, and it was Tommy Edman.
Okay.
How could you? Some names in deeper leagues. Orlando Arcia, 19% roster. I know the Braves have some good matchups this week. Jose Tena, 13% rostered, but lots of lefties on the schedule. He is a left-handed bat, so don't know if that works out exactly. Otto Lopez, 10% rostered. He's been hitting well, 41 games since the start of August. He's batting .297 with 2 homers, 9 steals, and an OPS near 800. Scott, if you're just looking in deeper leagues, any of these names stand out? Orlando Arcia, Jose Tena, and Otto Lopez.
Well, I like Tena, as we've talked about before. I don't know what his numbers are against left-handers because he is a left-handed batter, and there are 4 lefties on the schedule. So I will look that up real quick. I do believe he's playing against lefties. His numbers aren't great. Yeah. For next week, I would say that Arcia probably, with the Braves having the second best hitter matchups. I guess he's probably the one to use.
He's been not terrible lately. Well, I guess it depends how you define the term lately. He has a 735 OPS with 9 homers since the All-Star break. It's decent enough. He's been really bad in September. So, I don't think Arcia is a difference maker by any means. But yeah, I think if you need to plug that hole, he's fine. Did you mention Otto Lopez?
Yeah. And these are
kind of interesting.
You weren't listening, Chris? Come on.
No, I could just, you guys want to do the podcast? It's all good. No one listens to me anyway.
Who among us? Otto Lopez has a not totally uninteresting skill set. He's a career 287 hitter at AAA, about a 15% strikeout rate, very, very little power, but decent speed. He's hit well lately for the Marlins. I don't have the numbers exactly, but I did write about him today in the waiver wire column. So let me see if I can pull that up really quickly.
Your mic is doing that weird underwater thing again. I don't know why it's happening, but
because I started talking about the Marlins.
That might be why.
Live underwater.
I did have 41 games since the start of August, Chris. 297, 2 homers, 9 steals, and OPS around 800.
That's the one I was going to say. 299 batting average since August 1st with a 36 stolen base pace.
Yeah. So again, those are very deep league names. And then, if you play in like a 12-team Myrtle League, you might be able to get someone better like a Perdomo or Story. And in the shallowest of leagues, Tommy Edman for this upcoming week. Some other news and notes, Tyler Glasnow has a sprained right elbow and is unlikely to return this season. He ends his Dodgers debut year with 22 starts, a 3.49 ERA, a .95 whip, 11K per 9. Did throw a career high 134 innings this season. But this is
more than that.
I will say, if you drafted Tyler Glasnow at cost this year, it worked out. Like, you made a pretty good pick. There were like 10 worse picks you could have made among starting pitchers who were drafted in the top 20. I think we did maybe for the CBS Sports Network show, we did like over-unders before the season. I think one of the ones, Frank, you picked was over-under Tyler Glasnow strikeouts. I think it was set at 173.5. He got to 69.
Ooh,
they're real good at that.
Yes.
over in Las Vegas.
Yeah, they certainly are. I think it does add, obviously, a little bit of doubt, at least for next season, for a 31-year-old pitcher who throws hard, has had Tommy John surgery. He ends his season with a sprained elbow. So I don't, off the top of my head, I'd like, who are you going to rank higher, Tyler Glasnow or Gerrit Cole for next year?
Probably Cole.
Oh, well, that's a big change because I think we were talking about Tyler Glasnow as a top 10, but so is it because it's a sprained elbow and
Yeah, I mean, it's more damage to an elbow that's already had plenty of damage. And look, presumably he will be fine by March, but like part of why we were talking about ranking Tyler Glasnow as a top 12 pitcher next season was he was on pace to actually finish a season. And now he's not going to.
Mm-hmm.
But he was top 10 coming into this season.
Yeah, we ranked him right around there. But he didn't have any elbow issues the previous year. So I think I don't know. Maybe I'll have Glasnow. I don't know.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I'm not
idea.
arguing with you. I'm just trying to, people who've listened, should we be that concerned about the sprained elbow? And, a sprained elbow is often a precursor to elbow reconstruction surgery. So it's not always, but it's a small distinction between a sprained elbow and a torn elbow ligament. So
it's semantic. A sprain is a tear. We just usually refer to a tear as a tear and a sprain as like an ouchie. But like medically, a sprain, when you tear your UCL in half, that's a sprain.
The worst kind of sprain.
Yeah, no, it's a grade 3 or whatever, but like that's like we don't even know if this is a grade 1 sprain, which is a relatively minor one. If it's a grade 2, like there are details we don't know as well, and we may never know.
Right. So all I'm saying is be careful with Glasnow.
As we've had to do for, I would say, most seasons of his career. Dave Roberts also added that he does not believe Clayton Kershaw will return before the end of the season. Tarek Skubal's right hand has checked out fine after testing, and he's expected to make his next start Wednesday against the Royals. Jose Altuve returned to the lineup Friday after missing Thursday with side soreness. Braves manager Brian Snitker said Friday that he's not sure if Ozzie Albies will play again in 2024. He suffered a fractured left wrist in late July. Tanner Houck was scratched from his start Friday due to right shoulder fatigue, and we have referenced many times the innings that have built up here for Tanner Houck. He's already up to a career high, and so, I mean, I think you could pretty safely at least not start Tanner Houck this week, right?
I would not want to start Tanner Houck this week.
Yep. Stephen Kwan missed all 3 games this weekend due to body fatigue. Have you guys heard anything on him, whether or not you should look for a replacement for Stephen Kwan?
I have not seen anything, but it feels pretty easy to sit him.
Yeah, he's been bad in the second half too. So,
yeah, but I think he's going to play. It would have to be a shallow 3 outfielder league where I could honestly feel like I could find an upgrade.
Alec Bohm was reinstated from the IL on Sunday. He was in the Phillies lineup batting 5th. Carlos Correa was reinstated from the IL on Saturday. He's been out since the All-Star break with plantar fasciitis. Correa is still 84% rostered and was having a great season before the injury. 308 batting average, 13 homers, 896 OPS in 75 games played this season. JT Realmuto returned to the lineup Friday after missing 5 straight with a left knee contusion. Jordan Westberg has begun hitting in the cage and is participating in full baseball activities. He's recovering from a fractured hand he suffered in late July. Ryan Nelson was placed in the IL with right shoulder inflammation. Sounds like Jordan Montgomery would jump back into the D-backs rotation. Dalton Varsho has missed 4 straight with shoulder soreness. Merrill Kelly has been cleared to pitch on Monday, which I believe makes him a 2-star pitcher at the Rockies and at the Brewers. So don't think you should use Merrill Kelly this week.
Yeah, he's in the no thanks tier of the 2-star pitchers for me.
Heston Kjerstad was reinstated from the IL Sunday. He was in the lineup batting 4th versus right-handed pitcher Keider Montero, and Kjerstad is 26% rostered. Looks like the Orioles have 6 games this week, at least 1 lefty on the schedule, and there's 1 TBD. Scott, any interest in Heston Kjerstad in deeper leagues the final couple weeks?
I mean, we don't really know how much he's going to play.
Mhm.
I would just leave him for AL only, I think.
All right. Ben Joyce was diagnosed with a right shoulder impingement and will miss the rest of this season. The Yankees moved Marcus Stroman to the bullpen. That means they're rolling with Gerrit Cole, Carlos Rodon, Nestor Cortez, Luis Gil, and Clark Schmidt in the rotation. Matt McClain is unlikely to return before the end of the season. He had shoulder surgery back in April and then suffered a stress reaction in his rib cage. Some other players who went on the IL this weekend, Paul Sewald with left neck discomfort. So it looks like it's Justin Martinez's job for the rest of the season.
Unless it becomes AJ Pucks.
That is a possibility. And Samuel Aldegari, who was recently called up for the Angels, he went on the IL with a blister on his left middle finger. The return, he is back. Jacob deGrom pitched well in his season debut at the Mariners. 3 2/3 shutout innings, 4 strikeouts, 10 whiffs on 61 pitches, a 16% swinging strike rate in this one. Velocity was down quite a bit, but first start back. Chris, Jacob deGrom.
It was down 1.5 miles/hour on both the fastball and slider, but I'm not sure that's a bad thing.
I have almost, yeah. I mean, you might be right, but I have 2 miles.
Because he was winning Cy Youngs before ramping up the velocity to where it ended up, and this has long been my theory with Jacob deGrom. He was throwing harder. He got to a point where he was throwing harder than his body could actually sustain, because that's when all the injuries started for him, when he took that next step with velocity, and he clearly didn't need it. He was winning Cy Youngs before then. So I hope it's intentional, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
What Round Rock is there. I'm trying to find his last, because I remember his minor league stints didn't look like his velocity was down at all. But I don't know.
I could find that pretty quickly here.
Yeah, but either way, like I agree. Like Jacob deGrom, I'm not worried about Jacob deGrom not being good, right? Like he had 10 whiffs on 61 pitches, 10 whiffs on 31 swings, 7 of them with the slider. He looked awesome. He mostly looked like Jacob deGrom. The problem is he threw 61 pitches. So when you're talking about the rest of the season, like he gets the Mariners again, I would expect more than 4 strikeouts next time around. If I was projecting that start, 5 innings, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts is probably where I'd put it. That's probably good enough to start in a roto league. I think he's probably not great in a points league for the final couple of weeks, but if we're talking about 2025 value, I don't know. There's no reason to believe that this guy can stay healthy. He hasn't done it since 2019. Mm-hmm. He hasn't thrown 100 innings he stayed healthy in 2020. That's not fair. I think he made every start in 2020. He hasn't thrown 100 innings since 2019. He hasn't made it through a season without a significant injury since 2020. If he goes around pick 100 in drafts, I think that's probably fine, right? A more extreme version of Tyler Glasnow. I have no expectation that he can stay healthy, but like as a top 40-ish starting pitcher.
Top what-ish?
40-ish.
That's going to be pick 100?
I would think that sounds right, but I don't know anything.
I'm going to rank him more like 2025, I think.
Okay. I think top 30 is probably around top 100 picks, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, okay. That's probably about. There were 35 pitchers selected in the top 100 last year. Probably
some of those are relievers.
8 of them are relievers, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to follow up on the velocity thing. His fastball velocity was not down as much at AAA as it was in this first major league start. The slider velocity was.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, not throwing as hard as when we last saw him in the majors. But again, I'm not worried about that.
How many pitches do you think he gets up to in this next start? 75?
75.
Yeah.
But probably, I would guess it maxes at 75.
Right. I always kind of liken Jacob deGrom to Thanos, right? It's like, you became the best pitcher in baseball. What did it cost you? Everything.
He already was the best pitcher in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, that was the 2018, 2019 Jacob deGrom is like late 90s Pedro. Like that's the closest analog I've ever seen. He had the 170 ERA one year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was reading the recap of his start on the Rangers official website, and they called him, upon second reference, the 4-time All-Star. And that made me sad because Jacob deGrom should have more than 4 All-Star appearances. It's just
Yeah.
Was it 2 Cy Youngs, 4 All-Stars? Is that?
Yeah.
That's a heck of a ratio.
Is he a Hall of Famer?
No.
I would have voted for Johan Santana. I would vote for Jacob deGrom.
Man, 36 years old. If we could get like 1 or 2 more of the type of seasons that like Chris Sale put up this year at DeGrom, he might make it, but
like
crazy.
He's at 1,400. He's not even at 1,400 career innings. He
just
probably doesn't get in.
That peak was so dominant.
But yeah, that peak is one of the 5 best pitchers I've ever seen.
I mean, Lincecum had a dominant peak. Johan Santana
like
got a dominant peak.
Johan should have gotten in. Lincecum, it was really only like 5 good years.
Brett Saberhagen.
All right, let's take our final break. And when we return, we'll get back into this weekend's action. I got some waiver wire pitchers, starter sit decisions. We'll do that right after this.
It's the beginning, we just got started.
It all begins in the here and now.
It's the beginning, we just got
The stage could not be any better set.
The UEFA Champions League is back.
the beginning, we just got started.
Welcome back in. Waiver wire pitchers from the weekend. Some names in shallower leagues between 70 and 75% rostered on CBS. Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom's teammate. He was okay at Seattle in his return. 4 innings, 2 runs, 2 strikeouts, but did have 11 whiffs on 73 pitches. He is home against the Mariners this week. David Peterson bounced back with a big start at the Phillies. 7 2/3, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, 18 whiffs on 99 pitches there. He's home against the Phillies again this week. Mackenzie Gore bounced back against the Marlins on Sunday. 6 innings, 1 unearned run with 5 strikeouts. He's at the Cubs this week. And Jameson Taillon, a quality start at the Rockies in Coors Field. 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. He had 14 whiffs on 85 pitches. And he gets the Nationals this week. So pretty good matchup there. Chris, how are you ranking just this upcoming week? Taillon versus the Nats, Mackenzie Gore at the Cubs, David Peterson versus the Phillies, and Max Scherzer home against the Mariners.
Blech. I guess I have to put Peterson first, given how good he's been for as long as he's been, but I have no faith in him doing this again against the best offense in baseball against lefties. 2 starts in a row, that feels like asking a lot. But I struggle with situations like this because I've just been wrong about David Peterson for like 2 months straight. And maybe I will just continue to be wrong about him for luckily only 2 more starts. But yeah, I would put him at the top. I think I'd go Gore and Taillon ahead of Scherzer, honestly. I know, Scott, you were a little more optimistic about Scherzer coming into this start. I don't know if you...
Yeah.
I didn't see anything to really change my opinion.
Well, he's facing the Mariners. So
yeah.
I had hoped for more, as dominant as that rehab start was for Scherzer.
Mm-hmm.
But he is... The only 2 of these 4 pitchers in the sleeper pitchers for this week are Scherzer and Taillon. Not Peterson, not Gore. So I guess I'd rank them in the reverse order that you did.
Yeah, I think putting Taillon at the top of the list would actually be totally fine. He's been good for quite some time, and Nationals
three good starts in a row.
Yeah, Nationals pretty good lineup there for Jameson Taillon. Waiver wire pitchers part 2. Clark Schmidt turned in a near quality start up against the Red Sox. 5 2/3, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts, and he is at the Mariners this week. Great matchup. Zach Littell turned in a quality start at the Guardians. 6 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts, 18 whiffs on 89 pitches. Problem is, he's home against the Red Sox this week. And Jose Quintana, a great start at the Phillies. 7 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts. His last 4 starts, a .36 ERA and a 1 whip. And he is home against the Nationals this week. Scott, any interest, or do you have any of these names on your sleeper pitchers? Jose Quintana, Zach Littell, and Clark Schmidt.
I don't, though you could make a case for Clark Schmidt. At the time, it didn't look like he was going to go against the Mariners, but I think it looked like the Yankees were going to stick with a 6-man at that point, and they have removed Marcus Stroman from the rotation, plan to go 5-man. So now Clark Schmidt does line up to face the Mariners, and he went 5 2/3 innings, so gave a true starter's length there. In his second start back from the IL, right? Long injury absence.
Yep.
He's looked just as good coming back as he did before the IL stint. And before the IL stint, he looked like he was having a breakout season. 2.41 ERA overall, 113 whip, 9.4 K per nine, a good swinging strike rate, fine walk rate. It's not a lot to say negative about Schmidt. It's been a curiously quiet breakout considering he's a Yankee, but he looked pretty good this year, and I think he'd be a fine play against the Mariners.
All right, waiver wire pitchers part 3. Martin Perez had a solid start at the Giants, 5 innings, 1 run, 2 strikeouts, and he is home against the White Sox this week. Fantastic matchup. Nick Martinez continues to pitch well. He was at the Twins, 6 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. He gets the Pirates this week. Edward Cabrera, an awesome start up against the Nationals, 6 innings, 2 unearned runs with 9 strikeouts. He had 16 whiffs on 100 pitches. Problem is he faces the Dodgers. And DJ Hers, another solid start on the other side of that one up against the Marlins, 5 innings, 1 run, 5 strikeouts. And he is at the Mets this week. Chris, any of these names stand out? Hers at the Mets, Cabrera versus the Dodgers, Nick Martinez versus the Pirates, and Martin Perez versus the White Sox.
I think 3 of these 4 are viable streamers for this week. Cabrera against the Dodgers. I know he's been good lately, and maybe we should have a longer conversation about him sort of maybe starting to look like the guy we hoped he could be, just by keeping the walks to a normal mediocre range.
He was almost my oh my goodness gracious player.
But I can't start him against the Dodgers. Like, maybe he'll be great, and we'll have a conversation later on this week about Edward Cabrera and his sleeper potential for 2025, and starting him against the Twins in the final week of the season, I think is what it would be. Yeah, that's weird. Marlins versus the Twins in the final week of the season is weird. The other ones I think are all viable streamers. Nick Martinez as a sparp against Pittsburgh, I like. Martin Perez also as a sparp against the White Sox is pretty good. And I think one of the things I'm going to do for the newsletter fairly early on after the season is a way too early sleepers, breakouts, and busts. I'm pretty confident DJ Hers is going to be on my sleepers list for 2025. I actually think, I don't know if this is a hot take. I think he's going to be the best national starter in 2025. And I say that as someone who has generally liked Mackenzie Gore quite a bit and still think there's plenty of upside there.
Yeah.
DJ Hers
does surprise me.
Has a strikeout rate near 30%. His whiff rate is like 78th percentile among all starters. The control has not been as bad as I feared it would be, and the quality of contact is fine. He's having a really, really nice second half of the season. Don't love the matchup against the Mets, but if Francisco Lindor's not there, don't hate it.
Yeah, I could see it as well with Hers. You know, someone who could generate whiffs on his fastball like Hers does, 30.6% whiff rate. I don't know if that's fully sustainable long term, but he's done it for quite some time, you know, at least this season.
And I think the changeup has room to grow. I think the changeup's a legit swing and miss pitch despite only okay numbers.
Yeah. It's just consistent on all 3 pitches for DJ Hers. The quality of contact and the whiff rates are, you know, they don't blow you away, but they're all pretty solid there for him. Some names in deeper leagues. Alec Marsh had a big start Friday at the Pirates, 5 1/3 innings, 1 run, 11 strikeouts with 18 whiffs. Brady Basso pitched well at the White Sox, 5 1/3 shutout with 2 strikeouts. Patrick Corbin, another quality start. This one against the Marlins, 6 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. Joey Cantillo had a huge week. He had that great start against the White Sox earlier on. And then versus Tampa, 5 shutout with 6 strikeouts. He had 15 whiffs on 78 pitches. And Kyle Freeland, a quality start up against the Cubs, 7 innings, 3 runs, 3 strikeouts. Scott, very clearly deep league names here. You know, 15-team leagues or deeper. But any of these names stand out? Freeland, Joey Cantillo, Patrick Corbin, Brady Basso, and Alec Marsh.
Well, I talked about Brady Basso last time when he made his major league debut and some interesting numbers he had put together at AAA. Overall, 10.2 K per nine versus 2.9 walks per nine. So you like that. The ERA is high overall, but last 8 starts at AAA, Brady Basso has a 2.29 ERA, 8.96 whip, and 11 K per nine. So he appeared to turn the corner. He's 26 years old. It's an atypical profile, but there may be something there for deeper leagues. Cubs is who he has this week, right? I'm not.
Yes.
I'm not thrilled to use him. I wouldn't be anyway because there's not enough of a track record there. But I think he's somebody to pay attention to if he finishes the year strong. And I can't really say that about these others. Alec Marsh has had flashes in his 5 starts at AAA, flat out dominant. But he's been in the majors long enough that we need to see a little bit of sustained success, I think, before we hop on board there, even though he probably has the best matchups of these 4 pitchers next time going against the Tigers.
I did just want to point out with Joey Cantillo, it's a really small sample size, but so far in the season, his slider has a 45% whiff rate and his changeup a 47% whiff rate. And he did have some prospect pedigree the past couple years in the minors. He's fallen off, but up through 2022, minor league track record was actually really good. So, and the Guardians typically do well with developing pitchers. So I'm not saying again, this is deep league stuff, maybe a super deep sleeper for next season, but some interesting whiff numbers there from Joey Cantillo. Waiver wire hitters, some names in 3 outfielder leagues. Pete Crow Armstrong enjoyed his weekend in Coors Field, 1 for 3 with a sock and a shoe on Saturday, then added his 10th home run on Sunday. Last 44 games per PCA, it's a 309 batting average, 7 homers, 9 steals, an OPS right around 900. Taylor Ward added another home run this weekend. He's having a big September, 326 with 6 home runs. And TJ Friedl hit 2 home runs this weekend as well. 4-hit game on Saturday. So he's picking things back up. Chris, how would you rank these hitters for this upcoming week? PCA, Taylor Ward, and TJ Friedl.
I think in a roto league, I would probably go in that order, mostly because PCA and Taylor Ward have 7 games and Friedl has 6. I think in points, I'd be fine with Ward at the top ahead of PCA, but Friedl at the bottom either way. Yeah.
The one word of caution on Crow Armstrong this week, the same one I gave for Michael Busch, 4 lefties on the schedule for the Cubs. Crow Armstrong's at least going to play those games, you would think, but not his best against lefties. So for the sleeper hitters, I do have Crow Armstrong on there, but I have Ward ahead of him, and I don't have Friedl on it.
For what it's worth, in 68 at-bats against lefties this season, PCA is batting .250, one of his 10 home runs, but also a .602 OPS. So, he's kind of holding his own, but obviously that OPS is pretty darn bad. Some names in 5 outfielder leagues. Lars Nootbaar has hit much better as of late. 2 for 4 with his 10th home run on Sunday, which came off of a lefty. 13 September games. He's batting .361, 2 homers, 2 steals, an OPS over 1,000. And Luke Raley, also having a big month so far, 326, 4 homers, 2 steals, 1129 OPS. 5 outfielder leagues, Scott, but did any of these names kind of cross your mind at all? Lars Nootbaar, Luke Raley?
The Cardinals matchups are decent this upcoming week. They have Skeens on the schedule and Mitch Keller on the schedule, Michael Boyd on the schedule, but otherwise the pitchers are pretty weak. So, yeah, I gave some thought to putting Nootbaar on the sleeper hitters list, and he is having a good September. Overall, he's put the ball on the ground, and it's true for September, too. He's put the ball on the ground way too much this year. He's kind of undercut his potential in that way. It's been a disappointing season for Lars Nootbaar overall, but the numbers this month are good, and, yeah, you could think about using him.
One name in deeper 2-catcher leagues, Hunter Goodman, had a huge game on Friday, 3 for 4 with a double dong, 7 RBI, and he has started 5 of the past 7 games for the Rockies. He's getting some starts in at catcher. He's 5% rostered. The Rockies have 6 games this week. 3 are in Coors, 3 are on the road. But Chris, a move I could see doing in a deeper two-catcher league, like Gabriel Moreno's back, dropping someone like Adrian Del Castillo to pick up Hunter Goodman.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I think I put in a bid for Hunter Goodman in one of my 14 team roto leagues where I think I was starting Gary Sanchez at catcher.
Yeah.
So just hope
This
that
guy-
Goodman, who has a little bit of speed and plays at Coors Field, hope he starts 4 games.
He's batting 188 this year, guys. Come on. Hunter Goodman has a 2-homer game, and you guys are all in again. I'd rather have Saul Goodman at this point, okay?
All right. Hold on. Hunter Goodman is a 24-year-old catcher with a 1088 career OPS at AAA. That's only 46 games, but at AA, he has an 825 OPS with 27 homers in 103 games. I
Okay.
don't think Hunter Goodman is great. We have touted less interesting Rockies players this season.
No, I don't know that I agree with that.
The
And,
bar is very low for deeper two-catcher leagues.
Hunter
Brenton
Goodman's-
Doyle hit 203 last year.
Very Michael Hessman minor league production here from Hunter Goodman.
That's reasonable. But
Michael Hessman, look him up.
Michael
That was his
Toglia
name,
is
right?
hitting
Michael Hessman?
221. It's not. Michael Toglia hit 163 last year.
Yeah, but Tolley is actually a prospect.
I'm not sure Toglia is that much more of a prospect than Hunter Goodman. I'm just saying Hunter Goodman's a catcher who plays at Coors Field.
Yeah. I do agree,
Sometimes.
Scott. Saul Goodman over Hunter Goodman for sure, but I would also take Hunter Goodman over Adrian Del Castillo for this upcoming week. Starter sit these starting pitchers this week, and just going to ask you about some big names first. And I know we're most likely going to start these guys, but Dylan Cease bounced back at the Giants, 6 shutout innings with 10 strikeouts, 22 whiffs on 92 pitches. But his previous 5 starts before this one, 5.27 ERA and a 154 whip, and he's home against the Astros this week. Dylan Cease.
Yeah, I'd be fine starting. This was his best start since July 25th, so it had been a while since Dylan Cease looked like Dylan Cease.
And
But
it had come with a lot of walks, that's when I get concerned about Dylan Cease.
But he hopefully turned things around here. And even if he didn't, you're probably going to get a lot of strikeouts.
Mhm.
So I think you just roll with them.
Logan Webb looks like he has taken a step back once again. His last 4 starts, a 6.86 ERA and a 167 whip. His changeup in his start this weekend had 0 whiffs, 0% CSW, 95.3 average exit velocity. So, you take away the best pitch from any pitcher, it's just not going to work. And Logan Webb is at the Orioles this week.
I think he threw it only 8% of the time too, right? The changeup.
Yeah.
Its usage has been going down now 4 starts in a row. Rock bottom here. With the 8% usage, 6.86 ERA during that 4-start stretch. Oh man, I don't really want to sit him, but
He's also much worse on the road this season.
yeah,
I don't think it's inconceivable to sit.
Yeah.
no, it's not. It's not at all. Like
I
It's
just don't know if
just-
any of the streamers that we talked about earlier, would you sit him for Martin Perez against the White Sox?
no. Like if
Nick
I'd sit him
Martinez
for
against the Pirates?
right. Like I think you'd need a higher end alternative, like a 2-star Reed Detmers or something.
Yeah.
You know what? Clark Schmidt at Seattle, I would do.
I could see that.
And it just feels like one of those situations where, okay, I'm going to play it safe here in the playoffs at this pitcher who's been bad in his last 4 starts, even though he's, normally borderline ace.
Mm-hmm.
And then he blows up on your bench because, of
It
course,
is.
he does.
It is possible. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe we're getting a little bit too cute. It's just, man, it's up and down, kind of inconsistent year for Logan Webb, and just obviously do not like that matchup at Baltimore. The rest of these names were all started in less than 70% of CBS leagues. Joe Musgrove was great at the Giants, 6 shutout innings with 8 strikeouts. He had 12 whiffs and 7 starts since returning from the IL, a 2.37 ERA and a .89 whip. He's home against the White Sox this week.
I missed the name. Who was that?
Joe Musgrove.
Joe Musgrove. Yeah, that other than that the bad start was an aberration, and he bounced back nicely. So yeah, of course.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe just all the Joe Musgrove fantasy managers are out of it by now. It's fully possible. But man, if you have him, please start him because that is a fantastic matchup.
He also has a new slider. I saw, Saris was tweeting about. So he's just continuing to tinker, but been really promising since coming back from that injury. And it's going to be really interesting to see how Joe Musgrove gets valued for 2025.
Zach Eflin took a tough luck loss at the Tigers, 6 2/3 innings, 1 run with 3 strikeouts in 7 starts with the Orioles, a 2.22 ERA and a 1.03 WHIP for Zach Eflin, who is home against the Giants this week. I say yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine.
Ronel Blanco turned in a strong start at the Angels, 6 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts, 15 whiffs on 92 pitches. This was his first start since September 1st, and he gets the Angels again this week. I haven't seen if he's actually going to stay in the rotation. Is he? Ronel Blanco?
Let me see. They have.
Yeah, I haven't seen.
Yeah, 7 games on the schedule this week, so I think he's supposed to. Yeah.
Are you guys good with using him against the Angels?
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spencer Schwellenbach turned in a strong start up against the Dodgers. 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, 13 whiffs on 92 pitches. And he is at the Reds this week. He's only 53% started. CBS.
He hadn't been super great for points leagues lately. No quality starts in almost a month, but yeah, I would start him.
Yusei Kikuchi has pitched well since joining the Astros. 8 starts with Houston, 3.19 ERA, a .94 WHIP, 11.1 K per 9, and he is home against the Angels this week. Only 69% started right now for Yusei Kikuchi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd lean yes on that.
And Charlie Morton continues to pitch well this time. Sunday Night Baseball up against the Dodgers. 6 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. He had 14 whiffs on 91 pitches. Last 7 outings for Morton, it's a 2.68 ERA, 1.26 WHIP. And he's at the Marlins this week. So I think so for Charlie.
Could at least think about that, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, we just said yes to everybody.
Logan Webb, I guess we were kind of on the fence for.
Yeah, fair enough. I would say the only ones that are like, I would say the only one that's a 100%, I can't imagine sitting him in any scenario, is that Joe Musgrove against the White Sox.
All right, fair enough. Let's get into some leftovers from the weekend. Adley Rutschman homered on Sunday, but I feel like we haven't talked about this. His second half has been dreadful. 207 batting average, 3 homers, a 604 OPS. The quality of contact has just been awful, which leads me to think he might be playing through something. I look back through the injuries. He was day-to-day with a right hand injury in late June and then day-to-day with a back injury in August. So maybe that's been a thing. I don't know.
It's been bad. The exit velocity has been down. And the fly ball rate has been up, and that's a bad combination. So I don't have an explanation for it. It just confirms that he deserves to have numbers like he does, but it doesn't really explain why he has numbers like he does. So what good is it really?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hypothesis that he's not 100% makes a lot of sense. He's a catcher who plays nearly every day, and they call him the tools of ignorance for a reason. And if you look on StatCast, we almost never talk about like defense on this show, but that is one place when a player's playing through injury that I like to look and just see like, okay, is he just hot or is he just cold at the plate or might there be something underlying here? And his sprint speed has dropped from 40th percentile to 29th percentile this season. Most of his defensive metrics have taken a big step back, including pop time, which would seem to me to be one of the most physical things that a catcher can do. So I think it's possible that he's just, or I guess likely that he's not 100% healthy. And I think you could probably say that about any catcher, but especially given those indicators for Adley Rutschman. But my long-term interest in Adley Rutschman has certainly not taken a hit. He's just probably not the number 1 catcher for next year.
I wanted to provide a reminder for how good these 2 hitters have been overall this season. Willy Adames had a monster game on Saturday, 3 for 3 with a double dong, 5 RBI. He's up to 32 homers, 109 RBI, 18 steals, and 810 OPS It's career highs across the board in a contract year, and he is now the 16th overall player in Roto this season and entering free agency. So, which I think will be fascinating for somebody like Willie Adames. And Brent Rooker, who added another home run and another steal this weekend. He entered Sunday as the 11th overall player in Roto, averaging 3.5 fantasy points per game in points leagues. That's tied for 13th among all hitters. It's better than names like Bryce Harper, Rafael Devers, Freddie Freeman. Just an insane season from Brent Rooker and Willie Adames.
Yeah, Adames, I started working on the top 12s for next season, and he was 11 at shortstop. That might be underselling him. Do I really need to put Oneil Cruz ahead of him? I'm going to. He's had a pretty big second half of his own. I think the ceiling's higher.
This is going to be the best year of Willie Adames' life, I feel confident saying. And so I would be careful about over-ranking him.
But I think top 12 is deserved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably.
Chris, please do let me know once you do those outfield rankings, because wherever you have Brent Rooker, I would love to know, because I have no clue.
I have no idea. I genuinely have no idea what to make of this Brent Rooker season. What's the analog here? Like, this is a 29. Is he 29?
That sounds right. He could even be a touch older than that.
29. He turns 30 on November 1st, so he's almost 30. He had a good season last year, but tons of strikeouts, very all or nothing, very hot or cold. He's just flat out been one of the best hitters in base. He has a 170 OPS plus this season. That's the kind of number that, like, if Aaron Judge didn't exist, might lead the major or might lead the league. Like, that is a huge, huge number. And it's come out of nowhere.
I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
Edwin Encarnacion's career followed a similar trajectory. He was not very strikeout prone.
Mm-hmm.
And Rooker remains strikeout prone, so it's not a perfect analog. Of course, Jose Bautista is an even more famous one even later on. But again, he had really good plate discipline, or at least did once he broke out.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I usually try to be careful with these one-year wonders and then find out that I've ranked them higher than everyone else, even in trying to be careful. So he's probably going to be top 20 for me.
I think
the process is probably going to be slower for me than Chris, and I don't know. Chris may go back and do a deep dive later on. I kind of go through all of October doing rankings, and I do a deep dive on every single player as I'm making those rankings. Sometimes maybe it's a little too much, but I find little kernels that maybe are better left ignored in these deep dives. But we'll see if I find anything for Rooker.
But here's another thing that we have to keep in mind that we frankly have no idea how to account for. They're going to be playing in Sacramento next year.
Yep.
Where, like, I want to say they recently had a stretch of, like, some absurd number of days in a row of 100-degree heat. And, like, I know Scott Boras did one of his extended soliloquies about the situation in Sacramento and the fact that they're going to be playing on artificial turf in a very warm climate and the impact that, like, I genuinely have no idea what to make of this very dumb, nonsensical, unnecessary situation that the Oakland Athletics are going to put their players through next season and for, like, what, 4 seasons after that. So I don't know. It's like how's that park going to play? What's like there's a lot of unknowns there as well.
It looks like it's a pretty bad park for hitters, right?
I don't
76. So I'm looking at last year's numbers, just comparing it to other PCL parks.
Mm-hmm.
86 park factor for home runs, 76 for runs.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, I mean, PCL's a hitter-friendly league overall, so it's hard to know how to adjust for that, but
Mhm.
it's the worst park. It's the second worst park in that league.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
it's not at elevation. It's one of the only parks or one of the parks in the PCL that's not at elevation. So
Yeah.
you wouldn't expect a boost that way. Yeah, I don't know. It's
I
to
don't know
be
what the
fair,
range is.
Oakland is not a good place to hit.
No.
either. So
No.
I mean, like the way Brent Rooker has impacted the ball this year, it might not matter where he plays,
Well, yeah.
but he also needs to maintain that level of production. And this is the only year we've seen him do that. So
I'm not going to say Sacramento's a bad place to hit. It's just not like a great place to hit. I think we can pretty much conclude that.
let's get into some other leftovers from the weekend, starting with some pitchers. First group, Corbin Burns, Chris Sale, and George Kirby. I'm not going to read off the lines, but all three of those guys were great. Did you guys have anything on Burns, Chris Sale, and George Kirby?
I mean, Kirby was good for once. Hasn't happened much lately, even though he wasn't getting strikeouts. I don't know. I've not really found anything when he was struggling and this time when he didn't to really dig into with Kirby. I just think he's probably the same guy he's always been and just kind of went through a rough stretch there.
Mm-hmm. Two other names. Jose Barrios is really finishing strong. His last 7 starts, 1.51 ERA and a .84 whip. And Christopher Sanchez doing the same thing. Last 6 starts, 1.99 ERA, .93 whip, and just 4 walks over 40 and 2/3 innings his last 6 outings. Chris, anything here on Barrios and Christopher Sanchez?
Barrios, I have no clue. This has been the thing with Barrios for, frankly, like his entire career. He goes through these stretches where he looks amazing. He goes through these stretches where he's awful. And it never really looks that different outside of the amount of hits and runs he give up, which I know that's the thing we care about. But as far as projecting moving forward, he's got a 3.44 ERA for the season, 4.70 FIP, 4.76 xERA. I am probably not too excited about drafting Jose Barrios for 2025.
Some hitters who are having some big Septembers. We already spoke about Julio Rodriguez, but Fernando Tatis has homered in 4 of his last 5 games. And in 11 games since returning, batting .295. He's got those 4 homers, 1 steal, .925 OPS. Gleyber Torres in 14 September games is batting .339, 2 homers, 11 runs, and .878 OPS. He has led off every game for the Yankees since August 16th. And Riley Green in September, .327, 4 homers, 13 RBI, and a .1046 OPS. It's got some big months so far for each of Tatis, Gleyber, and Riley Green.
Yeah, Gleyber's had a pretty hollow batting average during it. It really goes into August, right? Where he's been successful, but just not a lot of power. And so I'm not exactly, he hasn't really put my mind at ease, I would say, during this stretch where he's hit for average. Riley Green, are we going to take him over Brent Rooker next year?
No, I would take Rooker.
Okay, if you're going to take Rooker, then I'm going to take Rooker too.
Yeah, that's...
But Green is on pretty close to like a 27 homer pace. Steals are, I think he's only got 4.
Yeah. I mean, he's emerged as a legit power hitter this year. There's not a lot else there.
Yeah,
but there
I
shouldn't
think
be
he's
a lot else
must-start.
there for Rooker either.
Yeah. I think Riley Green's a must-start player.
Yeah.
I don't know if there might be another step forward. Obviously, he's super talented, but
still pretty young.
Yeah, but he's probably. I think before the season I made some Nick Castellanos comps, and that's probably, like the good Nick Castellanos seasons. Obviously, there's been a lot of inconsistency. That's probably where I'm at.
Yeah. I think I'll probably rank Rooker ahead of Riley Green, but it'll be one of those situations where if Rooker's a 5th round pick and Riley Green goes like a round or 2 later, I'll probably just wait for Riley Green instead.
Oh, man. Like 5th round sounds horrible for Rooker.
I just threw it out there. I have no idea what it's going to be, but yeah.
I think you got to wrap your heads around it, though, because
it's like 37 homers and 10 steals.
It's a pretty bonkers season.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of bonkers seasons that everybody knew to fade him the next year.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of thinking that's going to happen with Rooker. Maybe not.
Is Chris going to be the Brent Rooker guy? Is that what
I don't know. It's just like, it's one of those things where like, I understand why it happens, but like if Austin Riley had the season Brent Rooker's having, he's a top 15 pick.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's not
'cause
to
he's
say that,
Austin
right, he's
Riley.
Austin Riley. I get that, but like,
Yeah.
what if Brent Rooker is Austin Riley now?
Yeah.
Like the underlying numbers totally back it up. There's nothing
So-
fluky about it. It's just,
There was that random year Josh Bell had.
yeah, no, I get it.
And
I
everybody knew to fade
understand.
him. I ranked him higher than most.
I get it. I
Yeah.
understand the case against him. It's
Yeah.
but it is like on the merits, Brent Rooker definitely should be a top 40 pick.
Just based on this production
Yeah.
this season, yes. But obviously there are more factors than that. Some other hitting leftovers. Aaron Judge ended his home run drought in a big way on Friday. Go-ahead grand slam, and then 1 for 2 with a sock and a shoe on Sunday. He's up to 53 homers, 9 steals, tons of counting stats on the season for Aaron Judge. Bryce Harper, 2 for 4 with a double dong on Saturday, and those were his first 2 home runs since August 9th. So a bit of a power drought here from Bryce Harper. Cody Bellinger had a big week, 8 hits, 3 homers, 9 runs, 9 RBI. Yordan Alvarez continued his strong second half. He homered twice this weekend. James Wood, huge game on Sunday, 2 for 3 with a double dong. One of the homers was 109 exit velocity, 435 feet. The other, 107.7 exit velocity, 426 feet for James Wood. And Jackson Churio, another huge game on Sunday, 3 for 6 with his 21st home run and 5 RBI. Lots of fun, lots of interesting names here. Any quick thoughts? Churio, Wood, Alvarez, Bellinger, Harper, Judge.
So I have to point this out. Even coming off this 2-homer game for James Wood, his 162 game pace is 17 home runs. Isn't that surprising? He's got the very high ground ball rate, but it just feels like James Wood, he's killing it. But no, 162 game pace, 17 home runs. I would expect him to take a step forward next year, but it does make you think.
So, James Wood or Brent Rooker?
Everybody's going to take James Wood over Brent Rooker.
I'm probably going to rank James Wood ahead of Brent Rooker.
I'm going to draft Brent Rooker more than James Wood. I can't say I'm going to rank Brent Rooker ahead of James Wood.
Yeah. I have a feeling James Wood's going to be overranked, which is kind of why I said what I just said.
Yeah.
So I there's a good chance I'll draft more Rooker than Wood too, but Wood will go at least 3 rounds ahead of Rooker, I think.
Some bullpen updates for the Tigers. On Friday, Tyler Holton struck out 2 for his 8th save. And then on Sunday, Tyler Holton recorded 4 outs across the 6th and 7th innings. And then Jason Foley recorded the final 4 outs for his 23rd save of the season. I still think Foley is first up, but Tyler Holton has had a pretty good season. For the Yankees on Friday, Luke Weaver entered in the 8th inning with a 1-run lead. He tossed 2 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts for his 2nd save. And then on Sunday, it looks like Luke Weaver was unavailable after throwing 2 innings 2 days prior. Jake Cousins started the 9th inning with a 3-run lead. There was a hit by pitch, a strikeout, and then a walk. He was relieved by Tommy Canley, who induced a double play for his first save. But my guess as to who will lead the Yankees rest of season is Luke Weaver.
My guess too.
Yep. For the Rays on Friday, Edwin Uceta got the final 5 outs for his 3rd save. Scott, would you say the same thing about Uceta in Tampa Bay to lead them in saves?
At this point, yeah, though I think it's even murkier than the Yankees situation.
For the Cubs on Saturday, Porter Hodge got the 9th inning with a 2-run lead. He gave up a 2-run homer to Sam Hilliard, took his 3rd blown save. And then on Sunday, Hodge was unavailable. Keegan Thompson started the 9th inning with a 4-run lead. He gave up a single and 2 walks. Tyson Miller came on to get the final 3 outs for his first save. For the Pirates on Sunday, Aroldis Chapman struck out 1 for his 9th save. And for the Blue Jays on Sunday, Chad Green bounced back a 1-run lead. He gave up 2 hits, but did pick up his 17th save of the season. To stream or not to stream, on Monday, we have Matthew Boyd facing the Twins. Jake Irvin is at the Mets. Aaron Savali gets the Phillies. Andre Palante versus the Pirates. Reed Detmers gets the White Sox.
Obviously, Detmers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say Matthew Boyd's my second choice.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then on Tuesday, we have Albert Suarez, who faces the Giants. Bobby Miller Miller's been so bad, but he's at the Marlins, so I don't know.
His second matchup is good this week too, but he was still in the no thanks of the two
there's
start.
no way.
Tyler McGill gets the Nationals. We get anyone else kind of interesting? Oh, Griffin Canning gets the White Sox. Lance Lynn against the Pirates.
Yeah, I will just say in one league, I don't know if I got Kumar Rocker, but I did put in a decent bid for Kumar Rocker in a Roto league, and I went ahead and dropped Gavin Williams. And that's with very reasonable concerns about Kumar Rocker's actual utility for fantasy. I just don't really have any interest in starting Gavin Williams. So it's not a terrible matchup. I wouldn't be shocked if he did well, but I couldn't do it. So I like Monday a lot more than Tuesday.
I think I would go with
Suarez.
McGill and Suarez.
I could see a good Lance Lynn start against Pittsburgh too.
I like Canning most of all. Griffin Canning against the White Sox.
It could
but
work.
Albert Suarez against the Giants is my second choice.
Yep, and then I'll throw McGill third on that list. We are going to wrap there for Scott and Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.